fourth and final segment of the lectures on feminist ethics. And in this I'm just going to survey some of the problems with the care ethics that I presented in the last segment. Just to review, some of the differences between conventional ethics that we've mostly been doing up to now and feminist ethics have to do with conventional ethics is usually dealing with abstract principles or ways of calculating consequences or whatever, rights and utilitarianism. Feminist ethics is not concerned so much with principles as with context. It's not concerned so much with the things that we all have in common, that we're all moral agents, but with our individuality, with our particular individuals who are different from one another, who, some are introverted, some are extroverted, some are happy, some are sad, this sort of thing. Conventional ethics sees itself as a way to perhaps forge cooperation out of competition and conflict, whereas feminist ethics perhaps takes cooperation for granted. The basic relationship is one of caring, not one of fighting with or trying to dominate. It sees people as people with inside relationships. Relationships are very important. It's not an atomistic theory. It doesn't just concern us as individuals. It worries about our relationships to other people. It's about caring and not justice. It's about responsibilities and not just paying attention to rights and duties. And it involves, in particular, the cultivation of a certain type of wisdom. It's not just the calculation of consequences or the application of abstract principles. So, with that caveat, let's just look at some of the problems that are implicit here. First question you have to ask is the ethics of care intended as a replacement for all of other forms of ethical theory, or is it just another contribution, another source of considerations that you should take into account when you're making a decision? Now, in this presentation that I'm making to you over the course of these lectures, I've adopted this view of ethical pluralism, which I think is correct. That when you're trying to make decisions, you should learn from all the different approaches to ethics. The utilitarian approach, the rights-based, justice-based, virtue-based, and the feminist care ethics approach. I think that feminist ethics of care has a very important contribution to make to how we think about ethical problems. It's not meant as the only way to solve them. So with that in mind, it doesn't matter so much that the care ethic is also partial, may have problems with distant and future people, and maybe has to resolve an issue of self-sacrifice. But I'll just point these out to you because they're the limitations of the care perspective. So we've already seen this, but there is a conflict between the care ethic and the notion of impartiality built into other theories of justice. Even virtue ethics, a virtuous character is somebody who's fair, and somebody who's fair is somebody who is like justice, is blind, is impartial when making decisions. But there's perhaps a way of resolving this, because remember, justice is the idea of treating everyone as moral equals, and that means treating them the same unless there are morally irrelevant grounds for treating them differently. And the care ethic actually points to certain special relationships as being morally relevant in how you should treat people. The fact that this little child is somebody's son, makes a difference. And that if the mother saves her son instead of her neighbor's child, if she can only save one, I mean, this is fine. It's ethically permissible. It's ethically valuable, and nobody, would cast aspersions. So, ethics of care points out to us some morally relevant grounds for treating people differently that we may not otherwise have noticed. the ethics of care has, because it's concerned with particular individuals, has a problem in extending itself to people in in the other reaches of the globe, distant people, and also to future people, because we don't really have relationships with people the other side of the globe. Maybe less, maybe there's some historical story to tell, but you half of the, or most of the people living 10,000 miles away, you have never actually met and have no relationship with. Similarly, you do not know who or what they'll be like, people who will be alive in 100 years, future generations. We don't have any sort of relationship with them, and it's difficult to see how we can have care and empathy for particular people. Now, so that's true. Maybe care ethics is not what the type of ethical considerations we should use when thinking about issues of sustainability to the future and issues of globalization. Maybe we have to fall back on more abstract principles in these cases. But we should just point out that conventional ethics hasn't always worked very well in getting people to care about distant people or future generations. For example, the foster parents plan and it's now called Plan International, works by creating relationships between foster parents and their foster children, or sponsored children, really, in villages on the other side of the globe. My spouse sponsors a child, and she and I once actually went to visit our sponsored child in India, and the sponsored child did really exist, and we had having met her, we had a much better ability to care for her as an individual person. But we'd previously seen her picture, and that had attracted us to the sponsorship. Creating a particular relationship to a particular person, maybe did more for global justice by transferring money from our pockets to pockets of people in India. By the way, the children in Plan International are actually sponsored children. Like, the money doesn't go to the child; it goes to the village, to community development in the village, as opposed to, even though the child is the face of that community development for the person who's donating. Finally, this problem with the potential for self-sacrifice. How much caring are you responsible for? Do you have to care till it hurts too much? Well, again, this is a matter of wisdom. And it was a problem in virtue ethics, as you'll record. For example, the virtue of courage is the mean here in the center between cowardice and recklessness. Okay, too much of what looks like courage is being reckless. Not enough of it is to be cowardly. Similarly, the caring relationship is somehow the mean between being selfish, which is the opposite of being caring, and self-sacrifice, which is giving up too much. I mean, a person has to care for themselves as well. And seeing how to do this is a matter of practical wisdom. It's not something we can lay down in advance, and that can, of course, be tricky. So finally, a little question that takes us back actually to an earlier segment of this lecture. Which of the following is an example, is an opponent of feminism, most likely to give as a reason why the distribution of benefits and burdens within the family, within the family, shouldn't really be a matter of justice. So pause the video, think back to our discussion of domestic justice in an earlier segment, and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, let's look through the possible answers, looking for the best one. So we've got an opponent saying why the distribution justice should not take place, should not be a matter of justice and the state intervention. So the family socialized children in the virtue of fairness. That is certainly true, probably, but it doesn't really. It's not a reason why we shouldn't be concerned with the family. right? It's true, but it's not a reason why this opponent is going to pick up on. Equality of opportunity within the family. I'm not even sure what that means. That's just there to distract you. The privacy rights of individuals. Well, no. The reason that the justice should not permeate the family, according to opponents of liberal feminism, is not that individuals have privacy rights, but that families have privacy rights. This notion that that families can have a right not to be interfered with, and that is a contestable view that we have seen perhaps is in this area of social services and the prevention of child abuse is actually being fought over in an intellectual sense. Okay, this completes our lectures on feminism. Make sure you read the chapters, do the exercises, etc., and I will see you next week. Thank you.